Brown's my name. I work as the CTO at First Orion. I've been at First Orion for the past 7 years. When I joined, I was tasked with migrating our on-prem data center to the cloud. And then after moving it to the cloud, built out our knowledge base, our data processing platform. At the time, we were all in EMR. EMR was it was very difficult to scale. And then we were able to migrate to Databricks, and we've been on this platform for the past 3 years.
So what type of data are you collecting at First Orion?
So at First Orion, we're in the telecommunications space. So we're seeing, over 100 billion phone calls a year, and we're processing all that data. And for each phone call, there are multiple records that you have to kind of tie together and join to get kind of the true view of what happened during that phone call event. So we're storing that data, and then we're using it in scam protection, spoof protection, spam protection, but ultimately fraud prevention.
Like how do you see, Lakehouse as part of the effort?
The Lakehouse has provided a phenomenal opportunity for us to govern access and control to not only just the data itself, but even individual elements of the data. Out of the box, we're able to grant a certain role, certain access to specific data, and we don't have to kind of nitpick. And then when there's an elevated need for new data, that can be audited, right? They submit a ticket, then we're able to grant that access leveraging like Unity Catalog through Databricks. That's made, everybody's job much, much easier. Before we had something like Unity Catalog, we actually had to implement some very expensive data protection mechanisms. I think it was a factor of like 7 to 10x the size of the data just by needing to encrypt string columns. Now with something like Unity Catalog, we can actually do that on the fly where we don't have to store an exploded version of the data, because not only was it exploded and it cost a lot for storage, but then reading it in and then decrypting was a expensive process as well. That removed a ton of barrier to entry and allowed us to iterate much, much faster. Lineage is a very important aspect of this because we have to make sure we leverage multiple data sources, and we still have to be able to, when we get audited, we have to be able to ensure where that data came from. And we also want to be good stewards and not leverage data that, is not ethically sourced. And so being able to leverage like a Unity Catalog and the lineage side of that has been really helpful. It's saved a lot of time for our our data ops team as well. Before, the data ops team would have to, kind of grant access to the location and, constantly monitor our costs. Well, now all they have to do is just grant that access to a particular user group or user persona. And now, and it removes that tediousness of onboarding an engineer or, allowing, the different personas to leverage that data going forward. Just simplified everything across the board. So we've seen a tremendous gain in our performance of the team itself.